Welcome to Gaia University's Thrive Now webcast, hosted on Gaia U Radio. Today's call, we have an interview with Charles Eisenstein. First, let me introduce Gaia U co-founder, Andrew Langford.
Well, welcome to this second in our Thrive webinar series. This evening we have the privilege of Charles Eisenstein, interviewed by Ron McCorkle from the Herbiculture Foundation, so we're looking forward very much to that. And we're engaged in what the Thrive film calls the conversation worth having. And I hope you've been able to keep up with some of the material that's been showing up on the forums. I think there's been some very useful and interesting discussions there, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we're going to do this evening. So just to remind you that this is part of a series, so if you enjoy this call, think about signing up for the remainder of the series, which goes for the next 5 months or so. And there's a partner call to this one, the conversation calls, which will carry some of the same themes, and I invite you to sign up for those too. The more the merrier for this essential work that we're engaged in seeking to find a way of bringing increased coherence to the effort for transitioning our human cultures to something much more intelligent and much more rational and much more thoughtful in the world. So welcome, and I'd like just to pop over to have a few words from Jennifer, who'll explain to us how the technology works. So Jennifer, could you do that for us?
Thanks, Andrew. And what I wanted to share is that there's going to be the opportunity for you to raise your hand. And using the Maestro platform that we have with Gaia University, we have the ability to press keys on our phone or on our Skype pad or cell phone, whatever you're calling in from. And if you would press a 1 key anytime you have a technical concern or issue, if you're having trouble hearing someone, or if you're in a breakout group and you're by yourself, or something other comes up for you, press the 1 key. If you have a question about the content from the interview that Ron is conducting or the responses that Charles is giving, please press the 2 key. Okay, so 1 is for technology and 2 is for content. And we are going to have breakouts during our call today, and I will ask Andrew and Ron to give me just a moment before the breakout to make sure that you all understand what's going to happen then. So I'll postpone that IT announcement.
Great. Thanks very much, Jennifer. That's very helpful. And I think as we're around about 12 people on the call at the moment, we have the scope for a quick check-in from everybody. So I'd like to just go around the group and invite people to say their name, something that's going well for them, and what your connection is with Gaia University. So let's start at the bottom with Leora.
Just to let you know, I was looking for my 1 button. I missed the last 2 sentences you said, so just alerting you to the fact that there might be a little bit of a difficulty. So, here I am in Mexico. It's been beautiful here, and I'm feeling really well. We're leaving tomorrow to go to England, and then we'll be going to the U.S., so I've been quite busy with packing and sorting and figuring out what I need to take with me, and I'm really happy about this call. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, family scene. Okay. I think we'll move on to Nick LaHaye. You want to check in?
Hey, Andrew. Going good. I'm a Gaia University associate, and what's going well right now for me is I'm learning a lot about permaculture in the best way I learn, which is hands-on. I'm digging a pond as we speak. It's pretty exciting, and I'm up in Santa Cruz, California. Thanks.
Thank you. And Claire. Check in from Claire. Hi there, Claire.
Hey guys, it's Claire. I'm from the Thrive Project. I know Andrew and Leora and Jennifer, and just wanted to call in and listen in on the discussion. I'm excited to hear what's going on for everybody with this exciting topic.
Great, thanks very much, Claire. And Kristen, how about a check-in? Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I'm a friend of Ron's and have read some of Charles' work, and I'm just really interested in hearing this interview.
Excellent. Thanks very much. And Christopher.
Hey, good to hear from you. I'm doing well. I just got done at spending a week at the Esalen Institute in Big Sur, so I'm feeling really refreshed. And I am a Gaia University associate, so that's how I heard about the call, and I'm interested to learn more about Charles's work as well.
Thanks, Christopher. Ravenel, calling Ravenel.
Yeah, I'm here. I just had to unmute. Hi, I'm doing good. I'm calling in from Washington State. My association with the call is I'm an associate, and I'm currently writing an output packet called Mutually Beneficial Relationships. So the topic and the idea of writing is really of interest to me right now, and what is going well. I've been involved with this community garden project, and that's going really well. And I'm excited to be on the call, and well that I'm even being able to be here. I got to get off the phone half an hour early. I'm teaching a Zumba dance class.
Okay, well, glad you could come. Yeah. Coco.
Hey, hi. I saw Thrive on, when I was in the airport coming back from the East Coast, and I have some really good news today that I'm back. Jonathan Todd sent in his report for working with Lions with my community on his rich biodiverse way of working with the wastewater treatment facility, and I'm very heavily into all the negotiations with that, with all the different commissions and the Board of Trustees, and it's really exciting because I know it's something that will make our community thrive like crazy.
Great, yeah, thank you very much, Coco. And Nancy.
Hi.
Nancy from India. Yeah, great.
Can you hear me? So I'm Nancy calling in from South India, and I'm an associate with Gaia University. I've been reading some of Charles's writings over the past couple of years, and I've really liked them. So jumped at the chance to be at this call. What's going well for me is that I've been lately working with this small experimental school here in India, and we just took our youngest children, 6 years old, on a 4-day field trip, and it was such a magical, nourishing experience. At the same time exhausting, but also magical and nourishing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Nancy. Lovely to hear you. And Monica, could you check in for a moment?
Yes, happy to, Andrew. My name is Monica Ricks-Paxson. I'm an author. I write on the subject of the environment and medicine and science. And I live in the mountains of central Mexico. I'm the neighbor of Andrew and Leora in Huehuecoyotl.
Great. Welcome, Monica. Jennifer?
Great. I am very involved with Gaia University. I was an associate once and now work as an advisor and organizer of the various call series. And something that's going really well is I've been waking up at 5 o'clock every morning the past week to do morning nature connection. So that's been a really big deal for me, and I'm very grateful for it. And I'm also very impressed that Mansi is on the call from India, because I can only imagine that it's very late in India right now.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, and Charles, would you just like to introduce yourself briefly with something that's going well for you?
Yeah, excuse me, I'm in Pennsylvania here, and my work is going really well, and I'm just trying to make the rest of my life work around work.
Good job, good job. Yeah, okay, and I'll just check in and say this is Andrew here from Mexico. I'm just making my preparations for traveling tomorrow, and that's going very well, and I'm looking forward very much to this call, and I do a lot of managing in the Gaia University setup. And Ron.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ron McCorkle, and I am a Gaia University associate, and everything is going pretty good for me. I had a long working day, and it gave me an opportunity to review and see some of the fascination that's arising with these types of subjects that we're going to be talking about tonight. And I think that I'll lead right on into the event tonight. We're going to be spending about the next 45 minutes talking and mostly listening with Charles Eisenstein. Charles is an author, and he's written several things. Probably the largest book that he wrote was The Ascent of Humanity. I believe it was a 10-year project. Last July, he wrote Sacred Economics, and he's a regular blogger on realitysandwich.com. And I'd like to start there, I think, on Charles. Welcome, Charles, again. And On your blog at realitysandwich.com, you have regular postings about sacred economics. I understand that you're digitizing the book that you wrote in July. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your new book, Sacred Economics, if you will.
Well, I mean, the reason that it's going online, I mean, the book was published in print last July, but one of the conditions that I made the publisher agree to, or that I negotiated for, was that the full text also be available online, because I think it's really important to, I guess, walk the walk, and here I am writing a book about, well, in part, it's about gift economics, which isn't necessarily exclusive of money, but it's about how to imbue money with the properties of the gift, or to imbue our economy with the properties or the characteristics of an ancient gift culture or an ecology, because an ecology can be seen as a gift economy too. And anyway, so, I thought that, I mean, for one thing, the book has to be in alignment with its message. So that's why it's appearing on Reality Sandwich. And also just because, I tried to be the big shot author and self-promoter and stuff a while back, and it didn't come naturally to me, and I kind of went through the motions, and then I gave that up, and, as probably has happened in many people's lives, everything fell apart, but usually that's what brings people to somewhere like Gaia University as opposed to a conventional institution. So anyway, so sacred economics, essentially it says, what would it take for money to be as sacred as everything else in the universe? And why isn't it sacred right now? So I describe what about money makes it the enemy of all of the beautiful things that we want to do, either individually or as a society. And then based on that analysis, and a lot of it comes down to interest and the way money is created as interest-bearing debt. So based on that analysis, then I say, okay, well, what would money look like if it were the ally of the beautiful things that we want to do? So I play around with a bunch of different, I kind of synthesize various threads of alternative economic thought going back for a few centuries and present a vision and talk about how the transition can happen on a social and political level, and then also how on an individual level we can align ourselves with the transition and help to bring it into being.
Yeah, okay, and that is very, very interesting. I would like to know, because when I think of sacred and economics as individual words, I think of money and I think of holding dear. Could you define what you mean when you say sacred and economics? Is it just money, or is it more?
Yeah. Well, sacred. I do unpack that a bit, and I say sacred. Something is sacred. What makes something sacred is its uniqueness and also its connections, its relationships. So anything that is shorn of its relationships, alienated or divorced, abstracted from its matrix of relationships, and made into something generic, is no longer sacred, or at least its sacredness is invisible. So the quintessential example would be a commodity, which once you've mined it and extracted it and processed it and made it standard, it doesn't matter where it came from. It still has the same value and the same utility. And that's actually the goal with a commodity, is to divorce it from anything that would make it unique. And that's how it becomes something that you can buy and sell and without worrying about what effects it's going to have. And it's also it's generic too. It's standard, and you can specify. I mean, sure, like it's actually not identical to another example of the commodity, but for all practical purposes, it is. And so money itself, even more than any commodity, is divorced from its origins. Everybody's money is the same, no matter where it comes from. Once it's in your bank account or in your wallet, it doesn't matter. The origin doesn't matter. It's just money. And it's also just like any other money. So it's not sacred. And its effects on the world are anything but sacred too. In fact, any time that you want to do something really worthy, like say restore a wetlands or something like that, you'll find 9 times out of 10 that money is not your ally in that, but in fact you have to fight the money power to do that. And so as far as the other part of your question, economics, I mean, an economist defines it as exchanges that are being done for money. But of course, I work with a broader definition, which is the means by which the gifts of humans and nature circulate. How do we circulate gifts, and how do we bring together gifts and needs? That's really what we're talking about. And how do we coordinate human activity?
Thanks. Yeah, I remember in your book, Ascent of Humanity, you talked about in the gift economy, the more money you have, the worse off you are, because you want the idea of a gift economy is to give as much as possible. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for a hunter-gatherer, for instance, possessions are a burden because hunter-gatherers are nomadic and they don't do you any good. Sitting in your hut, all of these possessions don't do you any good. So in hunter-gatherer societies, if you have more than you can use, then or more than you can eat, say you are a hunter and you come back with a really large animal, you'll give it as widely as possible, thereby generating gratitude and actually making yourself more secure in the world. So wealth is a matter of how much you give. In a money economy such as ours, it's the opposite. Wealth is not a matter of how much you give. Wealth is a matter of how much you have, how much you control. And if you are economically rational in this system, you only give if you have some assurance of getting even more in return. So wealth is the opposite of what it is in a gift society. Now, this is because of interest on money. So one of the pieces of the vision that I described is to reverse that and make money embody the characteristics of hunter-gatherer possessions where it's a burden. So if money has negative interest then, for example, and decays, just like everything else in the universe does, and returns to its source and embodies the law of impermanence, and well then, you're much better off circulating it, lending it at zero interest, which is a gift of its use. That's actually economically rational. So it aligns generosity with self-interest. But that's just one little piece of it. Yeah.
And I'm curious, I know that for your Ascent of Humanity book, you have the gift option and is available 100% for free if someone wants to, or they can contribute, or they can buy it. There's many different options, and I'm wondering, other than, well, first of all, how is that working for you? And secondly, what other processes have you used successfully in a gift economy mentality? I know it's kind of difficult because there's not many people doing it, but could you give us some examples?
Yeah, there's lots of ways I'm doing it. I mean, you named one, where I put the book online. And or there's like, say, an ebook version too, where it's like, okay, you choose the price. But in a gift society, you don't specify what the return gift is going to be in advance. You give the gift, and then you trust gratitude, either of the recipient or of the community that has witnessed your generosity, or in some sense of the whole universe, to support you and to circulate wealth back to you. So I'm trying to learn from these gift principles and practice them myself. So I put the book out there, and how do I know how valuable it is to you? One person might think it's a colossal waste of time. Another person might think it changed their life. So the return gift should have the opportunity to reflect the degree of gratitude and value received. Now, and I can't say that I'm getting a huge amount of money from voluntary payments, but it's I'd say at least $100 or $200 a month. It's not insignificant. But I also do events that way. So if I lead a day-long seminar or a retreat, as much as possible. I mean, sometimes someone will invite me to go speak somewhere, and then I'll just do it their way. But if it's something that someone's organizing for me, then we'll do the same thing. The participants decide how much they want to pay, and it works fine. But there's also there's a lot of things I can say about it. One thing is that sometimes the return gift comes in a very mysterious way. Like I might go, speak somewhere for free, like say on this phone call, for example. And then in some inexplicable way, in the future, something happens that feels like it was this gift coming back to me. And sometimes it's obvious, someone on this call liked what I said and so recommended me to be a speaker at so-and-so and da-da-da-da, and then it comes back in an obvious way. Sometimes it's just kind of a feeling like this wouldn't have happened if I hadn't given that kind of gift. And it's really, this is kind of what I was saying about the personal dimension of the transformation, is to embody gift culture. And it's a process of gradual, you don't have to necessarily jump into it all at once, but it's a gradual growth in your trust, where you start to see and experience that it's actually true, that what you give does come back to you in some way. And it's then, those experiences deepen your trust, and you can do it more and more. And sometimes it'll be challenged, too, where the gift comes back after a very long time or in an unrecognizable form, or what you think you wanted isn't what you're getting. And so it's a real journey. And lots of people are doing it in different ways. I mean, I've been, since I started talking about this, I've received many, many messages from people who are doing this I mean, there's clinics, like health clinics where that are gift-based. There's restaurants. There's even a law firm that allows the client to decide what the fee is. And these are like high-powered attorneys. So I think it's the model of the future. And someday, hopefully, we'll have an entire system where you just worry about what you want to give, and you know that you will receive what you need as a matter of course.
Right. Yeah. Well, I know that in Gaia. I know that in Gaia University there are many people who are concerned with what we would call a right livelihood, which is we're defining as something that we feel really good about, something that we feel like we're integrated into nature, into a holistic way of living. And a lot of us are finding it challenging to actually produce enough income to be sustainable in society. And so, what do you say to those concerned with earning a right livelihood so that they can really feel good about what they're doing and in a world that's seemingly ruled by money?
Yeah, that's a huge concern. I've thought about that a lot. I mean, there's a reason why, why isn't the big money in permaculture? Why doesn't that pay more than, say, accounting, or corporate tax law? If you think about it, money is simply a social convention. It's created through our agreements. And we could create a different kind of money through our agreements if we wanted to. Money, basically, it is the token of what is valuable to the society. And so it seems like we're saying that corporate tax law, or say you wanted to become a lobby and lobby for laxer laws on toxic waste dumps, like someone will pay you a lot of money to do that. But if you want to lobby for more stringent regulations, there's not a lot of money in that. And so one part of the book I investigate, well, why is that? Why should it be that way? Why should money be the enemy of all of the things that we actually need the most on Earth? I mean, obviously the planet needs more permaculture and less toxic waste dumps. It doesn't take a lot of brain to figure that out. But why? So why is money pushing it in the opposite direction? Why do we have to struggle against the force of money to do the things that not only that we want to do and that we find fulfilling, but that the planet needs and society needs too? And the reason for that comes down on a very basic level to the way that money is created and circulates. It comes into existence as interest-bearing debt. So a bank is only going to lend money into existence to somebody who's going to be able to pay back even more of it. In other words, somebody who's going to be able to create new goods and services. So the iron law of money is money goes to those who will make even more of it. So if what you want to do in life isn't going to produce a lot of salable product, or isn't going to facilitate the conversion of nature into product, or the conversion of relationships into services, then there's no way for money to get to you unless, and this is the key to right livelihood, unless it comes to you as a gift in some form. It could be a very indirect, could be that somebody is funding a nonprofit organization which then hires you and so forth. But basically you're not going to be making money for anybody doing the things that most people at Gaia University want to do. Therefore, ultimately, the only way, and I'm exaggerating or generalizing a little bit here, but generally speaking, the only way to live and to make a living and right livelihood is to live off gifts, because you're going to have to receive money from people who aren't going to get even more of it back. And I think that that's okay to live off gifts, and I think that there are a lot of people today who desire to give those kinds of gifts.
Yeah. I know. I think every once in a while I can get into a frame of mind where I definitely believe that. And that's usually when I'm interacting with other people, either in an intentional community or Gaia University, where several of us are thinking the same way. And it just makes perfect sense. And it's almost a blissful feeling. And then, of course, the real world, right? So what I want to do now, and to let you know, Charles, every once in a while with the Maestro calls, we like to go into what's called breakout rooms.
Yeah.
And with this particular subject being pretty important to a lot of people, I thought we would try one right now. So Jennifer has set one up, and what I want you to think about, all of you, when you go into your room, is to ask each other, what are you currently doing that could be considered, that could be translated into a gift economy? What is a right livelihood for you right now, and what would you like to be doing? The way we normally do this is to have 2 minutes each, and one person talks while the other two listen. And it's a way of collecting thoughts, and then we'll come back and go from there. But before we go into the room, Jennifer would like to explain a little bit more.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. Charles, it's been a pleasure listening to you so far. So with the breakouts, there's going to be a bell that signifies the start of the breakout, and Once you're in the breakout room, you have to control your own microphone. So you may want to mute yourself when you're not speaking so there's not any feedback. There's going to be 2 to 3 people in the breakout rooms. I've got it set up where there's 3 people in each room, and I also know that some people are calling in from, like Skype, and their connection's not good enough to speak, but they can listen. So even though you're in a room with 3 people, you might only have 2 people able to speak. So, I'm going to ring a bell every 2 minutes to indicate when it would be time to change to the next person. If you are in a group of 3, if you're in a group of 2, you just self-regulate and decide, who's talking in what order. And at the end, I will give you a 1-minute warning so you can start wrapping up your conversation, and then I'll bring us all back into the main room. So I hope that it is enjoyable for all of you. If you have any questions about the IT, please raise your hand by pressing the 1 key, and I will come into your breakout room and check to see what's going on. Ron, do you have anything else you want to say before I put everyone in the breakout room?
No, I think that you've said it all. I'd love to hear maybe some thoughts when you come back, so if you can formulate some thoughts and then maybe raise your hand, press button number 2 when you come back out of the room, and maybe we can answer a couple of questions. Other than that, enjoy.
You are now in a breakout. Please begin. Please change partners. Please change partners. You have 1 more minute. You have 1 more minute. Please bring your conversation to a close. This breakout session is now ending.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. I hope that was a fun journey into your own private little room with 3 people. And I know that while I was in my room, I had the privilege of being with Charles, and so he answered my question already. And what I would like to do is to see if any other questions came up from you in your rooms. And if so, please press your number 2 button on your telephone. That will let us know that you have a question for Charles about a specific item that you have, or general, or maybe a group question. If you press your number 2, and we have Gregory right now, it looks like, that is ready to talk.
Great. Thanks, Ron. My name's Gregory. I'm calling in from Boulder, Colorado. And my question for Charles, I think this is a really deep subject, so it's hard to encapsulate it into an easily answerable question. But I wanted to ask if there were any examples of gift of communities or people or even businesses that are operating with gift economies and also interfacing with the monetary economy that we could look at, explore, and talk with, because I think perhaps a lot of us are in that in-between state. Thank you.
Yeah, in my book I cite a few of them. One of them that I can just remember off the top of my head is Valorum Law Firm. It's in Chicago, and they're like top 50 firm attorneys that got sick of the dog race and formed their own firm where they don't do billable hours and all that kind of crap. But instead, when they do legal services for you, and it's often corporate clients and stuff. So the client gets a bill, and it has the firm's assessment of the value of services rendered, item by item, and then there's a subtotal, and then there's another line underneath that says value adjustment. And the client can write any number that he wants, positive or negative, into that line. And then there's the total. So you could make the total 0 if you wanted to. And the firm has no legal recourse. And that's just the way, and they would get no money. But apparently it works quite well for them. That's an example. Now, I don't want a gift-based business model or gift economics or living in the gift to become some kind of standard of goodness that people do because they want to be good. It should be something that comes out of a natural desire, and it should feel like a graceful transition, something that perhaps challenges the edge of your courage but doesn't go beyond it too far. And so you can take a lot of partial steps. And one thing that really helps, though, is when the old way just wasn't working after all. So say you're doing permaculture design. And there's lots of people out there who want permaculture, but there's not a lot who are going to pay you a professional fee. So you're thinking, and so you go through this whole thing where it's like, my work is really valuable, so I should be charging top dollar for it. But then on the other hand, you're thinking, my work is really valuable, I should be giving it away for free because I want this for people and I want this for the earth. So any amount that you charge is both too much and too little. So this is a perfect opportunity to say, if any amount's too much and any amount's too little, then I'll let the recipient decide the amount. And I'll trust the recipient to give me something that is an honest amount, that I trust them to give generously within their means, whatever those are. And so that's kind of the basic template. Now you could also modify it in a lot of ways. Like you could only do that for certain clients, those that you feel that kind of trust with. Or you could charge for hard expenses and say, if this is what it would take for me to break even, and anything that you want to give will be what supports me and my family. I mean, you can do it that way. There's lots of ways to do it. And so I can't think of a whole lot of actual examples off the top of my head. There's some in the book, and if you hunt around, you'll find a lot more. A lot of healers and artists and musicians do this kind of thing.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Charles and Gregory, for your question. I wanted to see if there's any other questions related to gift economy, and I see that Andrew has a question for us. Andrew?
Yes. When I was reading The Ascent of Man, I noticed an emphasis on complementary currencies. And Charles, perhaps you could let us know a little bit about how you're thinking about how complementary currencies might assist in this process of moving towards the gift economy.
Yeah, so I talked about how the dominant currency, the dollar, actually pushes us away from gift economy and encourages us to accumulate and to convert life into money. But so you could design currencies with very different characteristics. And if you don't want to wait for the government to do that, then you could do it yourself, or you could do it within a city or a bioregion or a community. Now, I think that ultimately on a community level, you don't really need or want a currency, because when the group is small enough that gifts happen to a social witnessing, then you don't really need to keep track. And part of there's something in you that doesn't really want to keep track. Everybody knows who's being generous and who isn't. But we don't live in a tribal society anymore. We have a distribution of a differentiation of labor on a vast scale. And furthermore, even at a small local level, these gift relationships have broken down. We don't have community anymore. So one way to rebuild community is through complementary currencies, like especially time banks, and I don't know if people know how those work. If there's interest, I can go into the details of time banking. But basically, it's just a way to facilitate the flow of goods and services without using, especially services, without using money. All that's necessary is the willingness to make the transaction. So basically, you keep track. You mow somebody's lawn, that takes 2 hours, then you have 2 hours of credit, and you can use those to pay somebody else for some other babysitting, maybe. And so it helps get people reconnected and to rebuild that those gift relationships and that trust.
Thanks. And I know that I've worked locally with a Let's program, and that was really nice. I realized that it's about the relationships that you build. And one thing that I really found was as my relationships increased, my needs were met, and what I thought that I needed to buy really went down. So it turned out that the relationship itself was the economy, and I think that's the sacred part that you were talking about. I want to take one more. I want to take one more question on this subject, and then I have a slightly different direction to go for the remainder of the event. Nala, I see your hand is up. Would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be a part of this, so thank you, Charles, for being here. I have a kind of a specific question because I've been wanting to experiment with offering my workshops and classes, by donation kind of system. But whenever I'm trying to work with a venue, they're unsure about whether or not they want to work with me if I don't, charge the normal fee that a workshop like mine would normally cost. So I don't know if you have any practical solutions or something you know about to, when you're trying to interface with someone who's working with a.
What kind of venues are you using?
Well, in this case, it's like a dance studio, and they have a certain rate per hour that they want to get.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like if they have a fixed rate per hour, I mean, usually I'll just, I'll pay that in advance, and. And often I'll say, like a lot of times what I'll do, especially if it's a long workshop, that really involves commitment, I'll have people pay a deposit to hold their space and to cover hard costs. And then people still can decide what they want to pay for the actual fee. In fact, they could decide to pay zero and get their deposit back. But, people usually won't do that, and that kind of covers the costs up front. And now if it's just like a 1 or 2 hour thing, then you can just, I don't know, I would just pay the rental, and just tell people, like what you can't do is just have like a donation basket off to the side somewhere and hope that people will notice it. And, I really don't want to talk about money, so I'm not going to draw attention to it. And then you'll end up getting not very much. And even worse, people will think, oh, free event, and they'll come late. They'll come without being psychologically prepared for a special experience. They'll treat it as a throwaway. So the money, So
I think that was their problem with it, that if I don't charge a certain price, that it's going to kind of devalue their other offerings. I think that's more of their concern rather than, they're not going to cover costs, and that's a concern as well. But if I'm offering a regular class that's undercutting the other ones, you know what I mean? That's been their concern.
I mean, in that case, you just might not be very in alignment, or they might not be in alignment with you, and you might have to find another venue. Because I find lots of venues who are excited about this,
Right.
And they'll even give me a discount.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and sometimes they'll be like, you pay us what you want too. Like they'll join into the gift spirit too.
Great, thanks. It's all really interesting stuff. I wish we could all be like that, and I think that we're starting to change. And it makes me think of an analogy that I have sometimes about what's going on. It seems like it's like we're in a cave, and it's like some people in the cave are seeing some light outside of the cave, and they're starting to look out, and they're seeing a brilliant light, and it looks really, really good. And it's like those pioneers who are trying to get who are looking out of the cave and trusting that it's okay, are starting to tell everybody else in the cave that it's okay, and everyone's starting to come out. And it brings me to what a lot of people, including myself, think about part of how this happened. And I'm going back to Isaac Newton in, I guess, the 17th century. And I know that you wrote about Isaac, and my theory is that everything seemed to be perfectly explained and put inside a nice, neat box for us so that we had parameters that we could live on, and that's basically how we grew our technology and became who we are today. But I would love to hear your ideas about that turning point in humanity and how we're starting to look more possibly into other aspects of nature like chaos and quantum and things like that. Now, I know it's a huge subject, but if you could generally give us some ideas on how did we get into the mess that we're in? How did we get into the cave?
It'll be fun. Okay, so, well, we can actually go back to maybe Pythagoras, who had this philosophy that all the world is number. The world is made of number. And underneath all of these disparate phenomena is just one thing, number. Interestingly enough, this philosophy came into being about the same time that Greek society became highly monetized, and where all things could be reduced to one thing, which was their value. But anyway, so over the centuries, science developed, which is essentially an attempt to fulfill Pythagoras' vision and to convert the world into number, to describe things mathematically. And before Newton, most of the progress being made was in astronomy, where the motions of the planets most of the motions of the planets were described mathematically by people like Kepler, who formulated these mathematical laws. And so then Newton came along, and what he did was he reduced these laws to an even simpler law, the universal law of gravitation. And he said, not only does this explain the motion of the moon and the planets and everything, but it also explains motion here on Earth. It explains an apple falling from the tree. It explains what happens when one solid body hits another one. So his laws of gravitation and kinetics seemed to say that we now have the final explanation for everything. Everything can be explained in terms of conservation of momentum and gravitation, and really all of these disparate phenomena that we see, that's actually just one thing happening. It's just mechanical. Even the motion of animals. Well, so the idea developed that these are just actually machines, and the noises they make are just the creaking of the wheels. Therefore, people had no compunctions about treating them like machines and treating the Earth and everything in nature as just a bunch of instrumental stuff. After all it really is a bunch of molecules moving around according to these deterministic laws. It also, so this Newtonian vision also implies that because the universe runs completely on mass, on force and mass, if we control force, then we can control the universe and become its lords and masters, as Descartes said at around the same time. It's not that I wouldn't say that our current rapidly becoming obsolete, but still current view of nature as a bunch of instrumental stuff for us to exploit is because of Newton. But that was a key moment in the articulation of this attitude and in its development, and it's being taken to its extreme. Now, what we've discovered is that the promise of science, that as we harness greater and greater forces and apply them more and more specifically, we will be able to control nature and design a world that is to the benefit of humanity, is bankrupt. It's becoming obvious that it's not working anymore, that ambition isn't working. And in fact, the contrary, it's generated insoluble crises and we're kind of trapped in this control mentality where, if there's a problem, then the solution is going to be to impose even more control. So we remedy the failure of control with even more control. It's just like somebody on a diet and they had a binge and they say, well, that was because I wasn't controlling myself enough, not realizing that it's the control itself that creates the binge. And so here we have this gets into all the stuff about the technological fix, that you have you spray a weed killer on a field and then it kills the weeds for a while, but then some new weeds come up, so what's the solution? Well, a new weed killer that's even more powerful, and that works for a while, but then even worse weeds come. So what do you do this time? Well, you spray another one, and each fix solves the problem that's right in front of your eyes, but it creates unforeseeable problems in the future. And that's kind of what the corner you backed yourself into, where the fixes aren't even working very well anymore, or not for very long.
Yeah, thanks. So getting back to people coming out of the cave or looking at new things in a new way, there's a couple of things that are going on right now. One is a huge movement called the Occupy movement, which I know that you're familiar with. I saw a really, really great 3-minute YouTube video about what your thoughts on that, and it was really, really great. I thought Occupy Love is what I remember the sign at the end of the video showed.
I think it said the occupation is love or something.
Yeah. And the other thing that's really hot right now seems to be the Thrive movie. I think hundreds of thousands of people have seen it, if I'm right. I think I read 1 million somewhere. And I wanted to know, what do you think about these movements, these relatively large scale and mainstream, possibly mainstream-ish movements? What do you think about them? Are they helping, or is it going to be another weed? Is it going to be another control problem?
I think that they're both very significant, especially Occupy. Because here, something that was recognized only unconsciously, that the system is fundamentally unfair, and that you're not supposed to spend your life paying off debt, and that our society is destroying the earth and making most of the population miserable, and this was not really an explicit part of the political dialogue, and maybe it's still not quite there, but the Occupy movement has certainly brought it more into awareness. Plus, the movement is pioneering a new way of doing things. All stuff about non-hierarchical organization and open space technology and having no leaders. And this is revolutionary stuff, and it is modeling different ways to get things done. You can't say that they were ineffective. So I think it's significant in a lot of ways. And as for Thrive, I think that it is important because it gives voice to this knowing that we know, but find the words to articulate that world that has been offered to us as normal, and the reality that's been offered to us real, is not normal and not real. People sense this on some level, but because there's no validation of that knowledge, people then they doubt themselves and think, well, maybe the problem is me. Why should I be so angry? There's nothing really to be angry at because things are fundamentally fine. Otherwise, half the population wouldn't be talking about Kim Kardashian or whatever her name is. All of the preoccupations with celebrities and sports and other kinds of trivia implicitly tell us that everything is fundamentally fine. And so this movie comes along and says, no, it's not fundamentally fine. Now, I disagree with the cause of the wrong that it identifies, this cabal of bad people who manipulate the world's systems. I mean, I think that, for example, the money system manipulates the elites and not vice versa. And that we're all enthralled to various ideologies and systems and institutions and the deep myths that underlie it all. Primarily, well, I mean, let's get back to Newton and Descartes, but primarily the myth of our own separateness. This is what controls everybody, including the but nonetheless, like even if I agree with the identity that the movie of the wrong that the movie advances, I still think that it's tapping into and liberating a really important feeling, and it's a necessary stage. You know, first you think that the problem is with you and there's something wrong with you. Why don't I want to participate in the world? And what's wrong with me? Why would I rather just drink, or would I rather stay in bed, or why am I lazy and procrastinating? And you realize, oh, this is a mutiny of soul. There's a good reason why I don't want to wholeheartedly participate. So it's an important liberating step. Then eventually, you know, there's maybe more realizations that come where you realize that the wrongness isn't just outside of you after all, but that any wrongness that we see out there reflects a shadow that's in here too. But as it stands, I think that the movie is really significant and popularity is really significant.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks. I haven't actually got a chance to see it. I feel like I know it though because I've heard so many comments and reviews on it. I hope to actually watch it in the next day or two. Now, I'd like to try and do another breakout group now. And this time, I would like everybody to consider those two topics, the Occupy movement, almost everybody has one near where they live, and the Thrive movie. And if you would, take 2 minutes each and talk about your feelings about that. Talk about how that relates to you, how you see that affecting the world you live in. And then we'll come back and we'll address some final thoughts to Charles. Okay? Jennifer, do you want to get that started?
Yeah. Same as last time. We'll do the bells at 2 minutes, 4 minutes, and 6 minutes, and I'll give you a 1 minute warning that you are about to wrap up. All right. So here we go, everyone. Enjoy your breakout.
You are now in a breakout. Please begin. Please change partners. Please change partners. You have 1 more minute. Please bring your conversation to a close. This breakout session is now ending.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. And we have just about 10 more minutes left in the content part of this call. I am interested to hear any information that we can harvest from your groups. If you have any thing you'd like to share, please press your number 2 button, and it could be in the form of a question or a statement. How do you feel? It can be relevant to anything, actually. Anything you know of Charles, anything you want to know of Charles, anything you want to know about anything. And if there's not any questions, then I'm going to move on to the next question that I have, because I have a lot of them. Well, let's see. I think Patrick has a question. Patrick, do you have a question? Go ahead. Go ahead, Patrick.
Okay. And it has to do, thinking back on the time of Newton and Kepler and Descartes and such. They really spawned or sparked a new paradigm with how we understand science and astronomy, and it kind of launched us on the path for the industrial revolution, or scientific revolution, industrial revolution, technological and communication revolution. Do you think that there's a next paradigm to be shifted, and how that might look with regards to physics?
The kinds of technologies that are Newtonian in nature that have kind of reached their limit, I think. So, I mean, I don't think I'm going to try to go into a whole long discourse about this, but just to say that, we're looking now at a different, not just new technologies, but a new kind of technology that's based on self-organization, emergent properties, nonlinear dynamics, and quantum phenomena. And the stuff, to go back to the Thrive movie, an example of these would be the free energy technologies over unity devices and stuff that appear to violate the second law of thermodynamics, but which I don't think actually do. So yes, the answer, yes.
Thanks a lot. I wanted to go on just your thoughts on this, since a lot of us are associates at Gaia University, and I think most of us are students of something or another. What do you think, in your opinion, are the greatest things that people around the world can be studying in an effort to live harmoniously in our ecosystems? And that's the last question.
Okay. Well, certainly can you mute yourself there? Yeah, certainly the future, we're going to have to, I mean, this is almost like so obvious that I almost hesitate to say it, but we're going to have to live as part of the ecology and not as an exception to it. So everything that we produce has to be recycled back into the ecosystem. Waste is food, as they say in ecology, and we have to practice that. So we have to have an industrial system that is an extension of ecology and not an exception to it, and an economic system and money system built around that. And so so anything that contributes to that transition is certainly something useful for the planet. And something I think is really cool is that it will also be the path to abundance. The situation that we have now where the stuff that's really good for the planet and society, there's not a lot of money in that, and the stuff that is turning the planet into money, that's where the money is. That's not going to last much longer. That money system is on its last legs. It's falling apart. And the money system, well, the one that I describe in my book and that lots of other people are describing in various ways, actually aligns money with things like permaculture, and things like zero waste manufacturing and all of these other things that are what the planet really needs. And that's why I call it sacred economics, because it's aligned with the things that are becoming sacred to us, like a livable planet, for example, or indigenous cultures, or all the things that we strive for today. So I think that even though it's hard right now and requires courage right now, that people at Gaia University studying sustainable business and permaculture and things like that, they're actually doing something way more practical than going to a conventional university and studying finance or accounting, ironically enough.
Yeah. Striving to thrive, I think that's what we're all wanting to do here. I wanted to let people know about your blog at realitysandwich.com. When I went there, I just saw so many different blogs about so many different subjects. And over the last 2 months, I've gone through from front to back, from beginning to end of your book, Ascent of Humanity. And I got to say, that book has so much information in it. I can't, it blows my mind that you put so much together in that. And I highly recommend it for everybody. It's just really, really great. And it's 10 years of your work is what I remember seeing in that. And your newest book, Sacred Economics, I intend to read next. And I would like to thank you a lot, Charles, for coming today. When I first saw you speaking, it was a few years ago at a local festival, and you had a lot of people that were listening intently. And I couldn't tell if they thought you were crazy or if you made more sense than anybody they'd ever heard. And I know now that you're enlightening and inspiring to a lot of people. And that's really, really causing major shifts, I think. It's a big part of it. I'd like to end now by passing it back over to Andrew, who would have a few last words to say. Thank you, Charles, for coming.
Thanks. Well, yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Charles, and thank you, everybody else who's come along on the call and made it a lively and thoughtful opportunity to do some sharing. I'm really delighted that we've gone from deeply philosophical material to some very practical stuff. Like lawyers with their little value adjustment line in voice, that strikes me as being one of those key pieces of information which allows me to see exactly how the steps towards the gift economy could emerge. So I really appreciate that we've gone from macro to micro in this conversation. So just to say thanks very much to Foster and Kimberly, the originators, the co-creators of the Thrive movie, who proposed that we should engage in the conversation worth having, and this is part of that process that we're working on right now, so thanks very much for that. And just to encourage people to notice that, again, that this is one of the series, so there are 6 more calls organized in this series, so feel free to go onto the Gaia University catalogue and see when the next one coming up is Evan Peters from who's a native Alaskan person who's going to focus on proactive action for young people in indigenous communities in the Americas. So, that'll be a very interesting conversation. And also, there's a series of community calls, the next one of which is on the 25th of January on cultural wisdom, which is also part of it's the second part of the Thrive series. So feel free to rummage about in the Gaia University online catalogue and see what's available there and come along and participate. So thank you very much indeed, everybody. Take good care and look forward to seeing you on another occasion. Over and out.